Okay, hey everyone, thanks for joining us in the Navigate Credit Union Broadcast Center. June is Migraine and Headache Awareness Month, so if these changes, patterns, and weather have been bothering you, I understand. So I'd like to welcome the president of the Association of Migraine Disorders, Dr. Rick Godley, to the show. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to bring awareness to migraines.
Yes, no kidding. We appreciate you having us. So the association, it's a national organization, and it's right here in our backyard in North Kingstown.
That's correct. And we're working on several different levels. There is a new campaign to bring some awareness about migraine disease because most people just think of it as a headache disease. But we've been trying to get people to understand that it is affecting all parts of our nervous system. So I see people who have trouble with balance disorders, they have trouble with pressure in their face and a runny nose, and they think they have sinusitis, but it's actually their nervous system which is giving them trouble. So we have been reaching out to other migraine organizations and have formed a coalition and have decided that June 21st, the longest day of the year,
We have a theme going today.
yeah, should be a day that people support anyone that they know that has migraine. So what we ask people to do is something simple, just wear sunglasses.
I love this.
So they should wear them in somewhere that can be seen, not necessarily over their eyes, indoors, in places that you wouldn't normally see sunglasses, so that they become something symbolic, like, okay, we know that migraine is an important disease, and we're recognizing that. Right now, it's one of the most common neurologic diseases, and yet it's not got any of the traction that, let's say, ALS or Alzheimer's gets, yet it's much more prevalent. It affects 36 million Americans.
Yeah, so let's talk about this. So we have on June 21st, the campaign is Show You Care, Wear a Pair, World Solidarity Day on June 21st. And so for everyone out there, if you know someone who has migraine, if you are a migrainer yourself, you want, oh, thank you so much, Ryan, good to see you.
Show and tell.
So, yeah, exactly. So you can...
Here you get to support it.
Yeah, thank you. So we have t-shirts, and you have sunglasses. So just wearing them, yeah, you put them on your head. Yeah, I like that.
Enough.
So really trying to get out the word to let people know that it's more than just headaches, to let people know what's happening. What's interesting, I think, about migraines is that there's such an impact on production within the business climate, school, that kind of thing. And that's where I think you were kind of starting to go with that. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about that, because it impacts so many people and impacts their lives in so many different ways.
Exactly. So we're trying to make people aware that migraine is actually a big public health issue, yeah, because it costs about 2.5 times as much to identify and treat a migraine sufferer than it does a normal patient. So it's driving up health premiums because we have not really done a good job of learning how to identify the disease or to treat it. But good news is on the way, right? So we've got a new screening test for the genetic defects that we know.
Really?
49 different defects are screened by a little mouth swab, sort of like 23andMe.
Really?
It's not yet recognized by insurances, so one would have to pay $350, and you do have to go to your physician to get that process underway. But when you get that test, first of all, it would confirm that you are a migraine sufferer, because half of people don't even know they are suffering from migraines. But it also suggests some of the treatments. Right now, treatments, the diagnosis is by elimination, and the treatment is trial and error. So we really have a long way to go in that area. The other good news is that there's a whole new series of treatments. There's a whole new class of drugs which people will be hearing about soon, which is based on using antibodies, which are preventing migraine disease by blocking one of the neurotransmitters. It has many fewer side effects than the drugs we use now, and it's equally, if not more effective. There's also going to be some new tools where we use electromodulation, which is using a little electric current placed very carefully in the trigeminal nerve that will help block some of these signals that are giving people a lot of pain. And you'll have control over that with a little device that you can turn on when you're having a bad headache.
So I've seen, I believe what I think you're talking about before, like kind of in the works.
There have been other ones, that's right. This is what I'm speaking about is something called a sphenopalatine ganglion, or SPG.
And this is
implant.
actually like getting
it's being
approved?
used over,
These things
it's
are getting
getting,
approved?
it is actually, it's in use in Europe.
Okay.
And that's where we're learning that how effective it is for cluster headaches. Now, cluster headaches are a particularly awful form of migraine, and usually it's just on one side. And we're hoping that as this technology becomes better understood, and it looks like it's quite safe and reversible if you wanted to, but you might be able to use it for many more applications, because it's really getting at the heart of the problem without having to use a drug.
Oh, geez, no kidding. So let's talk about this. So you've just mentioned a couple different treatment options, preventative and continuous options that a lot of people might not know about yet because they're in the pipeline. When might we be able to see those here available for patients? I know any option
Sure.
for people out there who are suffering.
Exactly. So we don't want to get people overly excited,
Yeah,
but,
no, but just,
I
I
do
mean, for
mention
people
it.
who are in pain.
I do mention it as
Anything is good news.
Keeping hope,
Yeah.
because these probably will hit the market in about 2017, but at the end in the fall of 2017. But the real next hurdle will be that they're going to be expensive.
Yeah.
So there's going to be really a shakeout on how this gets paid for. So it's going to take a while before it's universally available to people. But the other reason that we want to get people excited about migraine as a disease is that right now the migraine has a wide spectrum of severity. So I think most people know somebody who has maybe an occasional attack, but there is a subset, about 10% of that 36 million people, who have a chronic form of this disease. This is a really debilitating disease. To give you an idea, that the World Health Organization, when they started looking at how does disease affect people's lifestyle rather than just killing them, headaches and migraine in particular rose way up into the ranks. And in fact, it's the third most debilitating disease for adults under 50 years old. So right during the most productive years of their life, this disease is chasing them to their bedroom, because their pain will last 4 hours to a couple of days. And there's often, a period after they have the headaches that they just are fatigued and can't function.
You can't talk, you can't think straight, you can't
Well, it's
be
really
productive.
it's you don't want to have lights around. It's really hard to think, and of course you're dealing with this excruciating pain, and so that's affecting a lot of the workforce. So we know that it costs the economy about $13 billion a year in people not showing up for work. And also it affects school-age kids. There's among children who have migraine disease, they miss schools at twice the rate of other students.
Yeah, that would seem about right. So and you said, mentioning that genetic test, that could help then. So if you have a child who seems to be in pain, who's missing a lot of school, but you can't seem to get the diagnosis correct, if they do have option to take that genetic test, you could get some answers.
Yes, and that test will eventually become more and more useful. But it's just hopeful that now we can start to have a diagnostic test, which we've never had for this before.
No kidding.
Which is good.
That's amazing. I mean, and why not? I mean, if it means $350 is pretty expensive, but if it comes down to getting answers for something that you just haven't had answers for, that can mean a world of difference.
So I'm going to cycle back to why are we having this Solidarity Day?
Yes.
Because this June 21st is our World's Migraine Solidarity Day. We're trying to get the community of migraine supporters to get on the same page. Because right now, there is a bill that got passed last year, and in fact, our local Senator Sheldon Whitehouse was instrumental as one of the sponsors of it, called the CARA bill. And it helps to fight the opioid crisis. So how's migraine involved in that? Well, if one thinks about the reason we give out as physicians so many opioids is because we're trying to relieve people's pain, postoperative pain and other sources of chronic back pain as examples. We need alternatives. Not only do you need to, enforce laws and try to rehabilitate people who have this addiction, you really want to never get people on opioids. And the way to do that is to have alternative ways of controlling pain. So that comes through research. We really just need more basic research. And I've now given several reasons of why this is worth spending some money on and affects so many people. But the problem is that the CARA bill isn't funded yet. And with the current climate in Washington, it really takes a lot of public support to try to establish what are the priorities of what do we want to spend our taxpayer dollars on. And we believe that this is such an important area. I'll point out that it helps deal with the opioid crisis, but also we have really been concerned about post-concussion headaches. So it turns out that there's been studies to show that people who suffer concussions, if they have a history of migraine disease, they have a much higher rate of post-concussion headaches. And this has also been shown genetically, so that the defects in the nervous system, when they're traumatized, will fire inappropriately and give people symptoms.
That's interesting. So when it comes to treatments, I've been very surprised. I do a lot of research within migraine support groups and a lot of research within just all kinds of just migraine blogs, that kind of thing. People write about migraines. I've been surprised to find out that a lot of people who do seek relief from pain still get pain relief from opioids. I didn't know that, but there still is a community out there who are getting pain relief from opioids. How prevalent do you think that is still within the community, and can we continue to move away from that?
Well, I don't know the statistics on that. I'm not sure. There may be out there, but it is sort of a hidden area of treatment. We are trying to educate physicians to move away from that. I think this is often, opioids are used in emergency rooms because patients have now failed on the treatments that they were able to take through their neurology plan. And it's felt to be sort of a last-ditch treatment of the problem. But there are now some other alternatives to the opioids. So there's a question of providing, more tools for the emergency room physicians, but also really, just like in other pain relief, areas of pain relief, is not using that particular tool. Not good for somebody who has a chronic disease.
Because it can make things so much worse.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is a lifelong disease. Yeah. It starts in childhood. And just to reiterate how diffuse this disease is, it overlaps with about 30 other diseases, and it shows up in things like colic as a child, and abdominal pain as maybe a middle schooler, and then when one gets into puberty, because estrogen has effects on the nervous system, suddenly all these headaches start to blossom, and it really becomes predominantly an issue for women, where they outnumber men 3 or 4 to 1.
And there's so much that I think a lot of people who are interested in this topic would want to know, and so much that I could talk to you about, just relating on experience. But if people are interested, this World Solidarity Day is Wednesday, June 21st. I just got my day confused with them a minute ago, so now I'm going to remember which day it is, the 21st. And we actually have an event coming up next Friday where you are providing you have a whole host of people coming in to provide topic discussions. There's going to be panelists coming in. Tell me a little bit about what's happening next Friday.
Right, so we also, as much as we're working on not just a national but actually an international effort to have Awareness Day, we're quite focused on Rhode Island because Rhode Island is trying to establish a neuroscience center, and we believe that focusing more on migraine will distinguish us from other centers. It's not that, we have expertise in other areas, but what we'd like to do is to add migraine onto what people are doing now. So we've started this in working with the Brown Institute for Brain Science, where they've been developing new animal models that are now quite successful. And we have helped to fund a new fellowship. So there's a big gap in when people need funding to get their careers started. And very few people choose to go into researching about migraine. So we've started a postdoc fellowship there, and now we need to fund it. So every year we have the Mad Hatter Party, based on Lewis Carroll, who was a migrainer who used the sort of odd ocular changes that happen with migraine to be creative. And he came up with this wonderful wild world, and we're just using that as a theme for this. So there's a social fun aspect. We have 2 live bands there. We have an award ceremony where we're recognizing people who have really had a big impact on this disease. And we're trying to network. We're just trying to get a new mix of people together so that we could start to get some momentum behind having migraine more in the fabric of Rhode Island, perhaps having a headache center here one day.
That'd be cool.
I just think we could do better for our patients, and this is one way to do it. That's a ticketed event because we are fundraising.
Yeah.
And it's not too late to buy tickets. We really would love to have anyone who's interested in this. Particularly, we'd like to get more physicians because this is not a disease that should be relegated to the neurology community. It really requires lots of other specialists to understand how important it is that they learn to treat this disease. But we also have this panel discussion about hot topics where we talk about this new genetic test, but also alternatives to opioids. That's happening at 4:30 before the Mad Hatter Party, and that's free and open to the public. So people should probably register with us because we have a limited capacity, but we'd love to have people come and listen to that discussion.
Panelists look excellent. The whole event looks fantastic. So if you are interested in more information on what's happening within the migraine community, advancements, and what's coming next, you should definitely check that out. And tickets are still available for the Mad Hatter event. Dr. Rick Godley, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. The insight is always excellent to get. And if you or someone else you know suffers from migraines, definitely check them out because it's definitely worth getting more information for, and such a good resource to have in our backyard.
Thank you. Yes.
And join in for World Solidarity Day on June 21st. Wear a pair and show you care. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll catch up with you soon.
Thank you, Molly.
All right. Thank you so much. And thank you for the t-shirt.